Well, aloha, welcome everybody. Once again, I'm so very happy to be reconnecting with you. My name is Paul Fletcher, and this is The Healing Source. And today, for all of those of you that might be tuning in, it is May 15th, 2024. And today, we are going to be starting in a new series. I just completed Series 10, in which we went off the deep end and spoke about many things that happen in this world that are on the fringe, rabbit hole subjects, if you will. And I tried to cover them from the perspective of the spiritual being, how to utilize or understand them, how to work with them in such a way where you can benefit but not be dragged into the the unpleasant energetics that can occur when we spend too much time and energy on some of those things that are intriguing but not necessarily supportive of the spiritual journey. So if you missed any of those, make sure you subscribe and go back and listen to those. They are very fun, they are very interesting, and they are helpful to understand those subject matter, especially when it's in relationship to the quality and focus of your spiritual journey. Um, when I checked this morning, what direction do I take next? Do I start a new series or do I add to this present series, Series 10? And the answer I got was it's time to start a new series. So then I checked, as I do, in my channels. I check my divine guidance. And the divine guidance was to bring up the subject of channeling and what is referred to as divine flow. Now, this particular subject matter, divine flow, or what most of you or many of you might know as channeling, it can be viewed from several different perspectives because I know myself roughly 15 years ago, this was kind of a taboo subject. And my own perspective on channeling at that point in time was I'm not so sure this is a good thing. I wasn't convinced of its efficacy. I was not convinced of its value, nor was I convinced that whomever was doing the channeling was authentic. So I kind of had kid gloves towards this subject matter. So I think honestly that I'm a very good person to be talking about this because at that time, I was quite a bit younger than I am now, and at that time I was at the beginning of training with Dr. who is a very well-respected healer and a world-renowned author, humanitarian. And in order to understand the relevance of me explaining this person and his form of teaching of this subject matter, it's important to understand that what channeling is and how he used it. And then I can explain to you more on this subject matter of what it is and how it works. So, what is channeling? Channeling is the ability to pause your conscious mind and to attune, like a radio station, your frequency to a different frequency and then be the receiver of that message. Then, as you hear that message, you speak that message free of your own personality, free of your own conscious thoughts or conscious thought input into the words that come out of your mouth. So when I had seen that's the definition, that's what it is, and I had witnessed other people doing that, delivering a message, and from my own measurement abilities at those times, meaning following my own internal guidance, my own heart, etc. Sometimes I heard information that seemed and felt, I guess a good way to put it, accurate. It felt um, beneficial, I guess is a good way to put it. And then there was also some that I had heard from other people that felt um, skewed and tainted is maybe some better words that represent those energies. So I came to the conclusion many years ago, 15 or so years ago, before I learned and practiced divine flow channeling, that it is quite dependent. The quality, the accuracy, the information itself can be very, very dependent upon the individual that is in essence the receiver. So back in the days of radios and receivers and everyone getting the biggest and best stereo systems for their cars or their homes, because nowadays everything's Sirius satellite, everything is satellite driven. The quality of the receiver dictated the quality of the sound that came through. This is on the electronic world, and it's the same for the human being. You see, as has been explained in the previous series, we are a soul having a physical experience. We are animated. Our life is animated by our Creator. This is just a carcass that when we're done with it melts back into the earth, becomes worm food. But the part of us that keeps moving forward is our soul, and the soul carries all lifetimes of all information. And while we are in this vessel, the animation, the life force frequency and energy that comes to us and through us comes through our chakras, our channels, our acupuncture points, our energy meridians, and so forth. So when or if these are impure, out of balance, tainted, discolored, basically impure, then we are not going to be feeling very good as a human being. If we have a lot of impurity in our vibration, in our field, which again has been discussed in all of the previous shows, is as a result of our negative thoughts, negative words, negative actions of all lifetimes, then that impurity resides in our vibration, and it inhibits the flow of life force frequency that can benefit us, that can benefit our health, our wellness, our quality of life. Well, that same wisdom applies to the purity and quality of a message that we might be able to receive from other frequencies, from other beings of light or frequencies that are not specifically us. So this then goes a long way to explain how some people's information, when they quote, turn themselves off and connect and receive a message from something outside of them, is that something outside of them pure or impure? Are they pure or impure? And to what level is their purity? To what level is their impurity? This all boils down to that person's efforts on their spiritual journey to eliminate from their soul, from their field, all that is unpleasant, all that is negative, all that is old and not benefiting their overall health and wellness. So if an individual is conscious, is present, they're working on their spiritual journey, they're practicing opening their heart, they're practicing forgiving and letting go, they're practicing being pure in their thoughts, words, and actions, then what happens is they become a highly attuned receiver if they wish to be a receiver of messages. It might not be their intention. They can simply be a highly attuned receiver and be very connected to the source, and accordingly feel really good on the physical level, feel really aligned emotionally, not out of balance. They can feel grounded and supported mentally. They can be very connected to the source, and their heart is very open. And these are all qualities and attributes of somebody that is actively pursuing a well-balanced life that is spiritually connected. If that same person has a desire to receive messages from the source in this example, or from other sources, then they can. Now, when I was flowing out, because I did a flow on this, when I was flowing out, meaning I didn't just make up this subject matter, I asked, what is the subject matter? And I received the subject matter. And then I said, okay, how many weeks do I teach? And what do I teach each week? I did not make that up with my mind. I'll read you the flow. The first flow is today. What is divine flow and channeling and how does it work? Next week is how to develop divine flow and channeling abilities. This just came out. I'm sitting here typing and I'm hearing the words in my head as I'm typing it out. The third week is to whom or what are you connecting to in your divine flow? Okay, because rest assured, it's not always the same connection unless you really hone that frequency in, unless you really dial in that receiver and get strongly attuned to that one source that you're communicating with. It could be a variety of sources. The fourth week is specific practices with examples to enhance accuracy of your divine flow. Week 5 is expanding your divine flow to additional saints or light beings. And then the final week would be how and when to use divine flow in your lives and in other people's lives. So this is what flowed out when I did channeling or divine flow this morning, specific to this subject matter. And it represents a very good example of what is divine channeling. Because divine channeling is being a conduit through which the message comes through. And without getting in the way, allowing that message to come through with the greatest purity as possible, so that what is spoken, what is written, what is shared is free of impurities. You know, when I first started training with Dr. Master Sha, I was shocked. He was on stage, 300, 400, 500 people in the room, and he would say, I wrote something in one of the books, and then he would try to remember which book it was, and most of the time he could remember, but sometimes he would say, Cynthia, what book was it that I spoke about this? And she would let him know, and he would walk over to a part of his stage where he always had all of his books, 20 or so, and he would grab that book, he would flip to that page, and he would start reading it, okay? And he would say, what is this word? Now, he wrote the book. He dictates his books. He speaks the book, and Cynthia, which is one of his teachers, who is a student under him, she writes what he speaks. Now, Mandarin Chinese is his native tongue. English is not his native language. He had 1 year of English in college. So what was he doing? How could he write 20 books, 4 in 1 year? 4 in a year. You ask any book publisher how anyone can write 4 books in a year, and they'll just laugh at you. They say it's an almost impossibility. He wrote 4 thick books, 200-page books in a year. How's that possible? It's only possible because of divine flow. It's only possible because he had a very direct channel connected to the source, and he would simply connect and speak the words that came through. The student Cynthia typed down what was spoken through. Therefore, he was able to write 4 books a year. And that's nice, and that's cool, and that's wonderful. But did it really matter? Well, he's a New York Times bestseller 11 times. 11 times New York Times bestseller. And 4 of those times, he reached #1. Off books that came through his channel, out his tongue, and onto paper. Not books they sat down and wrote for a year trying to figure out the exact right words and sentences. So when somebody is truly connected and they have purity in their channel, then it can be validated as true and correct. It can be validated as something that is coming from a higher source. And this is truly important. So divine flow is not always, but typically is, messages from different frequencies or different entities or different beings. I say divine flow because that's how I was taught when I started doing this. When I first attended a 10-day event with Master Sha, uh, I was able to jump into a bunch of classes and sessions that were being taught. And one of those was divine flow. And I had a huge amount of resistance to becoming someone who connected and delivered messages. Huge resistance. Because in one of his trainings, one of his teachings, he said, there's many people who generate negative messages or bad karma because they deliver an inaccurate message. And then because that person trusts you, if you deliver an inaccurate message, that person could take that information, change the trajectory of their life in an unpleasant way, and then you generate bad karma. So I heard that and I'm like, I don't want to go there. I have no interest whatsoever in doing channeling, divine flow. I don't want to be that guy who gets it wrong. This is literally my consciousness, and I was sticking to my guns. I stuck to my guns for many years. I learned what I'm teaching you today and will be teaching in the next 6 weeks, and I'm significantly better at it than I was at that point in time. But I want you to know the process, because that is still true. Why is it true? Because when we quiet ourselves, move our consciousness out of the way, move our ego, if you will, out of the way, and become a vessel through which a message can come through, then we have our purity and our request of connection both dictate what we actually connect to, who we actually connect to. We could say I'm connecting to the source, but are we really? Could be something that's not the source. You see, the thing to understand about the human being and the universe at large is all creation exists now, all at once, now. Past, present, future, it's all now. And in this now, there is like a vertical column of dimensional frequencies, whatever you want to call it. Basically, life that lives at different vibrations. Okay, angels, saints, in the non-physical, live at a different vibration than you and I do on that vertical channel. But they're at the same time as we are. There's truly no past, present, future. There's just now. And so where is source? Where is creator? Well, source and creator is on that vertical line also. It's at a higher frequency than, let's say, a Buddha or a Jesus or that being of light that is in this higher channel than us. Well, what else is on that frequency spectrum? There's negative frequency on that spectrum. There is wannabes on that frequency and spectrum. And there is the positive. We spoke, just the last couple of weeks about aliens. Aliens are beings, right? They have a frequency. They might be in our dimensional frequency. They might be in one that's higher or lower than us, but they are on that frequency. So your personal vibration, your purity as a whole on your vessel dictates the attunement of your frequency of your channel, dictates what you are connecting to, what you will allow in. If you actually take time to purify your heart, you take time to ascertain a pure alignment, then you'll be able to discern instantly if the message coming through is of a high frequency, of an aligned light-based frequency. You'll be able to tell. So divine flow requires a recipient to be separate from the message. I have witnessed many teachers, including myself, receive divine flow, speak the message. Most all of them have been teachers that have trained with Master Sha. I witnessed others doing what's called channeling, which is the word that has been used for 100 years. When I started training with Master Sha, he referred to it as divine flow. That's what I learned. It is still channeling. There's, it's a form of connection. It's a form of allowing a message to come through you. Okay, that's what channeling is. And what I witnessed, including in myself, is that the message that came through, you could tell that it was a divine message. You could tell that frequency was from a higher source. But you could also tell the message itself is skewed according to the personality of the person that it's coming through. I witnessed that because I know those teachers' personalities. I know the words they use. I know them just talking to them for years. And when a message would come through, what I came to understand is that the source or the light that is borrowing your mouth, so to speak the message, can only work with your vocabulary. And depending on how connected your ego is, depending on how it's hard to describe ego, but depending on how connected your ego is, they can choose from your vocabulary, and it can be a very pure message that's free of ego nuances. But if there is still a lot of pollution in the vibration of the individual, then those ego nuances will come through in the words, how the words are pronounced, the connectivity of one word to the next. All of that can be slightly out of alignment of purity because of the lack of purity of the individual. It's quite interesting. So myself, I see that happen. I see sometimes the message that comes through, I can feel when my ego is involved. I can feel when a part of me wants to be involved in that answer. I can feel when it's not. I can feel when it's a pure flow and I'm not involved. I'm just like a witness and the message is coming through. And so this is important to understand, because if you're ever in a position where and this is week number 5, week number 6, I'm going to talk about how and when to use divine flow in your life and in others' lives. If you're using this to assist others, then it is important to be able to discern, how much of your ego and personality is skewing the message. Okay, so it all boils down to purity of heart. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a divine flow. And I'm going to ask about this subject matter today and anything that wants to come through. My encouragement to you is to listen with your heart, and you'll get to the point where you're able to feel the accuracy of the message. Does it feel 70%, 80%, 90% accurate? I don't know. You'll be able to tell. And this is also really, really important in you becoming a better a person that's more able to channel divine flow with high level of accuracy and comfortableness, is to be able to discern from others as well. So close your eyes, open your heart, receive the message, and I will connect. And then in the later series, later in the next couple of weeks, I'll go over the process that I use to connect and how to increase your efficacy, etc. Okay? I start by placing my hands in the soul light, soul service hand position, which is the left palm over the heart center and the right palm in prayer position. And then I relax and I breathe. Dear my source, I love you. Can you please offer a message to all those that will be listening to this podcast about the nature, power, and significance of divine flow? Anything that is new and enlightening that has not been shared here today, or anything that needs to be corrected from what has been shared, please offer this guidance. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Then what I do is I chant a moment or two to clear my channels, and then when I get an internal signal, I start to speak. Let us begin. How? This is the source. I am proud of my son, Paul, for delivering this message as he has. There has been much insight and wisdom around the nature of what is divine flow. However, there has been much missed, for there are quite a few subtleties. For example, what does the enlightened being do? Does he pause and say, "Dear God, what do I do next?" And then do it, and then pause and say, "Dear God, what do I do next?" The answer is no. The one who is enlightened is also the one who is living the light of the Source. Therefore, they are walking and talking the light of the Source. They are sharing the light of the Source. They are receiving on a moment-to-moment basis guidance, wisdom, insight, and opportunity of what and when to do the next action. They are, in essence, living in divine flow. So the ability to receive a message is but a moment in time. The ability to live in divine flow is the optimal human condition. This practice of learning to receive messages and to live in divine flow more and more throughout the day, not only upon waking up and going to bed, but throughout the day, is truly why this information has been brought to humanity. It is why I trained the one you call Master Sha in how to enhance his channels and how to teach this to you. For ultimately, this is not a parlor game and not a show. It is not a cute trick. It is the path to enlightenment. For when you walk in the flow of the divine, you are walking in the flow of your Source Creator. There is no right, there is no wrong. There is simply being in that pure, unconditional space, being the light for others in all moments, at all times. This is what is meant by divine flow, not a momentary connection. This is what I wanted to share with you at this time. This is the Source. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay. So, was that a pure message? We have to discern. You know, for me, I'm listening to the words coming out. I'm not the one making up those words. I set aside my consciousness. I receive the message. I speak it as it comes through. And I am, especially in this case, I am learning as I'm like, oh, wow. So before the Source started talking through me, I heard like a one-sentence overview. And then all the words followed. The one-sentence overview was something like, divine flow is your whole life. It's like you do this your whole life, all the time. And that was like bloop. I'm like, oh. And then all the words that spoke to you came through. Was it accurate? Did it feel right? Does your heart have any resistance to the message? It's important for us as practitioners of spirituality to recognize that divine flow can offer insights of things we never had any clue about. I mean, it's logical what divine said through me. I just never really thought about that way. So this is one example of the great value in channeling. It also is quite relevant in that when we take time to purify our soul, heart, mind, and body, in learning how to do this for ourselves and potentially for others, our life can be dramatically less unpleasant. Because if we're following in flow, then no matter what we're doing, it's the right thing to create the least resistance. It's like learning how to navigate the rapids of a river in such perfect harmony that you don't even get wet. That's living in divine flow. So we've come to the end of this half hour. Next week, when I return, we're going to go a little bit deeper. How to develop divine flow or channeling abilities. So I hope you return next week when I go into the next subject. Grab your friends, bring them, because this 6-week series is going to assist you significantly on your spiritual journey and your connection to the source. So I look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, make sure you subscribe and have an awesome day, everybody. Bye-bye.